Children, this is the second part of the video of the story The Secret Garden. So we have completed in our first video up to this portion, that is made quite a deep hole. Now we will start from here. Mary looked at it and saw something buried in the soil. So after seeing a turned up earth, Mary looked at it and she found that something must be buried and in the soil, and it was something like a ring of rusty iron or brass. And when the robin flew up into the tree nearby, she put out her hand and picked the ring up. So when she removed some of the soils from the top, she found that a ring like a rusty iron or brass, means a ring which is made up of rusty iron or a brass is there. And suddenly robin flew up from there, and that robin sat on a branch of a tree. And when she flew up, Mary put out her hands and picked the ring up. So she picked the ring of iron from that ground. It was an old key which looked as if it had been buried a long time. So that ring was looking like an old key, and it was rusty. It turned blackish. So after seeing that ring, it was quite clear that it has been buried many years ago. Mary stood up and looked at it with an almost frightened face as it hung from her finger. So Mary stood up and looked at it. Mary was looking at that key with an almost frightened face. Frightened. Why she is frightened, I don't know, but as I think that after seeing that kind of a key, which was not common to everyone, after seeing a old rusty key, we get excited at all. We get excited that why it is here buried in the soil. It must have some secret behind it. So after seeing that, Mary got frightened, and after seeing that, and it hung from her finger. So hung from her finger means that a ring was hanging from her finger. She was holding the key in his fingers. Perhaps it has been buried for 10 years, she said in a whisper. So Mary was whispering herself, and she was expecting that the key must be buried for 10 years. Maybe it was buried here from the last 10 years. Perhaps it is the key to the garden. Or she was also guessing that maybe it is the key. It is that particular key of that particular secret garden. She looked at the key quite a long time. So she was looking the key, turning this side and that side, and she was looking it for a long time. She thought that if it was the key to the closed garden and she could find out where the door was, she could open it and see what was inside the walls. So after getting a key which was too old and which was rusty, which was looking like a many years old key, so she got curious to find out the door of that lock of that particular key, and she was thinking that it must be the key of that particular secret garden. So I must find out the door of that secret garden, and she could open it, and she was willing to open that secret garden and want to find out what exactly is there inside the wall. She put the key in her pocket and went back home. The next day, Mary took her skipping rope and skipped round all the gardens and round the orchards. So next day, Mary was, as usual, she was playing in the garden. She was skipping all round the garden of her uncle's house and orchard, fruit garden, orchards, and all flowers everywhere. She stopped to rest a while, and there was the robin again. So after having a lot of skipping, she stopped for a while to take rest, and she found that the robin was again there, swaying on a long branch of ivy. Ivy is the name of a plant. It's climber type of a plant, and that the robin was swinging on a long branch of that ivy plant. He had followed her and he greeted her with a chirp. So they become friend to each other. So after seeing a friend, as we greeted our friends in the same way, the robin greeted Mary by a chirp sound. "You showed me where the key was yesterday," she said. "Show me the door today, but I don't believe you know." So these are the words from Mary's side. She is saying to Robin that yesterday you showed me the key to the secret garden, but today please show me the door to that garden. And along with that, she is also saying that there is a possibility that you don't know the door to the garden. The robin flew from his swinging spray of ivy on the top of the wall, and he opened his beak and sang a loud, lovely trill. So from that ivy plant or ivy climber plant, the robin flew up, and he sat on a high wall, and there he started singing by opening his beak with a loud, thrilling voice. A little gust of wind rushed down the path, and it was stronger than usual. Suddenly, a gust of wind, a flow of wind, comes from somewhere, and the wind was so strong. It was not like an usual wind. It was quite strong, and it made a path clear. It was strong enough to wave the branches of the trees and sway the trailing ivy hanging from the wall. So the wind was so heavy that the ivy plants that were hanging down from the top of the wall to the town, the wind was so strong that it made the ivy plant move here and there. The plants were swinging. Suddenly, the gust of wind swung aside some loose ivy, and Mary saw something under it, a round knob which had been covered by the leaves hanging over it. It was the knob of a door. And while the ivy plant were swinging, Mary suddenly saw a round knob. Knob means lock, a kind of a lock that we usually have in our doors, a round knob, and which was covered by the leaves. As it is closed from many years, so automatically the plants and trees grows around it. So it was covered by leaves hanging on it, and it was a knob of a door. And what was that knob for? That knob was attached to a door. Very soon we will come to our next video. Thank you.